Grow Boston. Is that you guys are doing this?
Yep, that's us here.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
You're on.
All right, let me get my presentation up. Can y'all see that there?
Yes.
Great. So thank you, everyone, and thank you especially to DSNI and the Sustainable Development Committee for having us. I'm Teresa Strachilla. I'm a program manager with Grow Boston, the city's Office of Urban Agriculture, which is also part of the Mayor's Office of Housing, or MOH. Again, we partner closely with the DSNI and SDC to engage with community members on all of our development projects. And so I'm here to talk about 14 parcels of city-owned land in your neighborhood off of Woodcliff Street and Letterfine Terrace. MOH is exploring preservation of this land as open space. So I'm just gonna, excuse me. Here's just an overview. I'm going to spend most of the time today talking about the land in particular, because I know that many folks don't know what Letterfine Terrace is or where, and the parcels are a little bit oddly configured and located, as well as really what the reason that I'm here today is to get feedback from community members and from SDC on a proposed use of the parcels. So I want to dedicate lots of time to comments and questions and answers. I'd like to invite any other Grow Boston staff. I know there's a few in the room, or MOH staff, to introduce themselves as well.
I'm Shawnee Fletcher, the director of Grow Boston.
And hi, I'm Cassidy Chang, a program coordinator with Grow Boston.
Great. I don't think I saw any elected officials or their representatives, but do want to give a moment in case anyone was here that I missed. All right. So again, these are parcels of land that we are exploring through the Grassroots program, which is the program that I manage. As I mentioned, and as you see from all of our names here, this is part of Grow Boston, the Office of Urban Agriculture. Grow Boston's goal is to increase food production and support local food producers in Boston, including gardeners, farmers, beekeepers, and many more, through a number of different programs. And like I mentioned, we're all part of MOH. The Grassroots program in particular provides city-owned land, grant funds, and technical assistance to neighborhood groups and nonprofit organizations for the development and improvements to community gardens, urban farms, and other open spaces. This is all part. What I'm talking about specifically here is a land disposition process that we are towards the beginning of. And as part of a land disposition process, we follow through Grow Boston, and we follow the same process that MOH does. So starting with site identification and evaluation of development feasibility. And then here we are leading to the RFP planning meetings, so public community meetings for feedback. This meeting will be informing how we write a future RFP for the land and parcels. And then assuming we get a good response to that, we will then move through the development, developer designation, financing, and towards construction. This process overall can take about 18 months for open space projects. And as part of a land disposition process for city-owned land, this process is governed by Chapter 30B, Mass law, that is designed to ensure a fair, open, and competitive process for the disposition of property that is valued at greater than $35,000. All right, and then I'm going to talk a lot about the site here, just to make sure folks have a good understanding of where it is. This is a large site in Roxbury, so 14 parcels with a total size of 57,000 square feet. It sounds like a big site because it is, and it's a lot of land. However, the reason we're looking at this land for open space rather than affordable housing or another built development use is largely because the land would be really difficult and expensive to develop. Over on the right side of where these parcels are, there is a very steep cliff that's super rocky, lots of ledge there, would be really expensive to develop, as well as, but there is a slight open area, kind of a prairie towards the center of the parcels here, down where Woodcliff Street kind of dead ends towards the end of these parcels. And off of Woodcliff Street, there's a flat open area amongst a few houses and behind a number of houses. Letterfind Terrace, as you'll see in a lot of the addresses, is actually this small private way here. So it's not signed with streets, and it really looks just like a driveway, but a number of the parcels are adjacent to it. A couple of the parcels are also close to Woodledge Street here. These parcels are not accessible from Woodledge Street because there's a really steep grade change and are really wooded and rocky. And then there are also a couple of parcels that are have Sargent Street addresses. So some folks have asked about that, and I want to make sure it's clear. These parcels are not actually on Sargent Street, which runs over here, but they are behind a house and the open space that's indicated on Google Maps as the Sargent Street Park. So again, really the only real access to these parcels is off of Woodcliff Street here. Here I have a satellite view of the parcels outlined here in red. As you can see, it's mostly heavily wooded, and almost all the areas that are heavily wooded and treed are again very steep and rocky, with this open space here towards the beginning, towards where Woodcliff is. I've got some current pictures of the site. So I was out taking these pictures in the last about a week and a half ago. And over on the right-hand side where this map is, you can see I've added an arrow, and the point of the round dot on the arrow indicates about where I was standing when I took the photo, with the arrow indicating the direction I was facing, just to help give some folks context. So this photo here shows a lot of the flat parcels standing towards the back of the flat part of the site and looking out towards Howard Ave. Howard Ave is where these houses are located. There's a couple of parcels that are directly on Woodcliff Street. So this is one of the parcels here that is in between a couple of houses, and then it looks back kind of toward the Letterfind Terrace area to a number of parcels that are behind houses here. Another view of kind of the flat meadow area. This is again looking from about Woodcliff Street towards the Letterfind Terrace area, and you can see the steep rocky grade in the back of the photo. Very, again, super rocky and very steep. There's a bit of an elevation change. And then the houses you can see in the background here are up on Sargent Street. This is a view straight on of that elevation change and the rockiness. Again, the houses in the background are on Sargent Street. This is taken from the level of Woodcliff. And then turning around a little bit, again, taken from the elevation of Woodcliff Street, but this is looking towards Woodledge, which is down in the bottom of the map area. And you can see that it's very rocky, pretty difficult to traverse, not accessible to Woodledge, but the kind of brick buildings in the background here are on Woodledge Street. So those are a lot of photos, and I'm happy to show more of those photos if folks have questions or would like to see more of the site. I'm going to move a little bit towards the discussion now. I'd like to start by outlining the proposed future use of the site. So we have heard interest in using this site as an improved urban forest with community open spaces. So keeping the area open for public use, or maintaining the area open for public use, and making some improvements to the forest area with trails, making sure that it is cleaned and well maintained, and some community amenities more in the flatter areas. One of those amenities that's proposed would be raised beds for community use, down again on the flat parcels near Woodcliff Street. Possibility of inclusion of food forest elements into landscape design for the site. So that includes perennial plants that bear edible things, fruit trees, nut trees, raspberry bushes, that kind of thing. There's also interest in building a small building on the flat parcels off of Woodcliff Street. The particular interest from a group in using a small building for early education. And most of the site would remain permanently protected by open space through a deed restriction under this proposed future use. There is, however, a possibility. We're talking about a lot of parcels, a number of which are kind of directly behind some folks' houses who have been using them. So there's a possibility that we would be in contact with those direct abutters about selling parcels to them at their appraised value so that they can have continued use of them, especially if they've been carrying them for a long time. And really, I'm here to get comments, thoughts, feedback, answer any questions that folks may have about this proposed use for a community open space that is for public use and includes maintaining the forested areas, possibly planting fruit trees and installing garden beds, as well as constructing a small building. I want to know, would you like to see this space preserved as public open space into the future? Is there anything you would not like to see on the site, as well as if there's anything you would like to see on the site in particular? And really any other questions, comments, or concerns that you have. And with that, I encourage folks to put questions into the chat or raise your hand, or we're a relatively small group, so I think we'll monitor that. And if folks want to raise their hand and can see that, please feel free. I'll go back to the map of the parcels so that folks can take a look at that as you're thinking. Yeah, Tanya, I see your hand up.
Hi, I know you mentioned that there would be some construction, and I know that you're not building per se anything. So I would like to know what your construction will consist of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
And
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a great question. So there is interest in building a very small preschool age building on the open parcels, the flat parcels. So kind of in this area here on Woodcliff Street. So it would be some amount of construction, but again, a very small structure. Did you have a follow-up or another question, Tanya?
I did. So the next thing you mentioned was that you were thinking of like offering to sell some of this parcel to abutters. But you said you're planning on selling it on something value. I didn't understand what you meant by that.
Yeah, great question. So if we were to offer put out an RFP for the majority of the land that is producing a public benefit, such as have it being open to the public, having open spaces, having community garden and trails, then we would be able to reduce the cost of the land to purchasers. However, if we're selling land directly to abutters for private use, then we are required to sell that land at the appraised value. So it's possible that that land would also remain open, and we could be putting use restrictions on it to keep it open space rather than having additional construction. But those are conversations we would have if there are abutters who are interested.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Maribel? Maribel, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
Sorry. I think it's a great idea to have the open space in the areas that are not, you cannot build. However, given the concerns that I have about housing, and I know your financial limitations, I would like to put on the table that the lots where you can walk into, that they do build mixed income housing for the purpose of buying rather than renting. Because there are a lot of people who do want to buy housing, a home, or like what we're doing here in Magnolia Street that we're doing, it's like a duplex and the owner owns one and then the owner rents the other side of the house, because there are people who just do not have the capital that is required here in Boston. But if there were some mixed income that is affordable mixed income housing for the purpose of buying, then those people might be able and will be able to live there. So I just want to leave it open that not everything is an open space, except the area that cannot be buildable. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that comment. One thing I wanna point out, so the city does own actually a couple of lots, if you can see where my cursor is, that are right on Howard Ave. And has kind of identified those lots as potentially buildable for housing. And so that's why they are not a part of the land that we're talking about now. The land that we're talking about now either doesn't have access to, like these lots here don't have access to a road, or are in a difficult position for building. And definitely, because we work with the Office of Housing and are part of that, we are in direct conversation with them and really prioritizing building affordable housing where we can. So I appreciate that comment, and we'll continue to push for that where it's possible.
I do have another question. Is it
Yeah.
that it's not easy to build a road to those areas, or it's completely inaccessible?
So these lots here where I'm pointing that are off of the Letterfine Terrace address. Letterfine Terrace is a private way, and I'm doing some research into figuring out exactly who's that who the owner of that private way is, but it looks likely that these lots that are small here are going to be inaccessible.
Mm. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your comments.
Teresa, I have a question or comment rather. I think one of the things that I really am not familiar with this space and how much of it is sort of in the cliff and what have you. I don't know if in fact, people wander into that space currently or not use it for something. But when you talked about the maintenance, I think that's really important to sort of emphasize in the RFP, because it's great that it's going to be accessible to the public. We just need to make sure that it's accessible and also in a safe way, right? Because people will see like, hey, now I can really go there. But we want to make sure that the paths will be clearly marked, and any potential cliff areas that are too dangerous sort of I guess guarded in some ways, right? So that we don't have any crazy stuff happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the idea of some kind of building structure there to facilitate again opportunities for learning, for possible gathering space to learn about urban forest and what have you. So I think that's a plus.
Great. Yeah, and then we definitely have that the building, if it were to be constructed, we would be asking folks to make that a building available to community use as well.
Oh, so we have Tracy, and I don't know if Buddy Bell raised her hand again, but Tracy, you can unmute yourself.
That's really nice. What's trying to be constructed there, but is it going to be like some form of like light, structure, so that because I don't want to say because we live in an urban community, but just because it's more safety, measures, and making sure that we're safe. If you're gonna have the little berries and the little things in the little pathway, how safe, well lit is the area going to be? Is it going to be open during certain time, or is it going to be just a walk through or something of that nature?
Yeah, great questions. We definitely could write into our RFP that we would be looking for anyone to and make sure that they're including lots of lighting of any public paths, and there could be clear hours of operation. You could be something like dawn till dusk or something like that. I definitely hear security concerns, both in terms of individual safety as well as the use of the site. And Anything else, Tracy? Desiree, did I see your hand?
Hi, Teresa. Thank you for the presentation. And this is me talking with my Roxbury resident hat on right now. So I just really love the idea of like the food forest and having green space. You know, I think I have a 3-year-old daughter. So when you talk about having a food forest and green space for the community, you know, we live in a city where the highway is running right through our neighborhoods, and there's not enough green space or spaces where early learners can go to learn about nature. So like the food forest idea, and I know that's been happening in other parts of the city and with the Boston Food Forest Coalition, and other organizations that are doing that. So I think that would be an amazing use of the space, as well as having the childcare. And I agree with Tracy. I think like making sure that whoever does take hold of the space provides lighting, maybe security camera, and that the space is incorporated in making sure that the Boston Police Department is also involved. A lot of the things we see in the community spaces in our neighborhoods is homelessness. Unfortunately, there are parks that you can't bring your kids to because of certain activity that's going on, and it's just not a safe space. So having a food forest, having access to food, access to green space, access to learning, and having a space where we can bring our kids to and teach them about growing their own food. I think that would be the best use of that space. So
Thanks, Desiree.
thank you.
Okay, so I don't see any other hands. Maybe we can.
Yeah, I'd love to just do a quick review of next steps, if that's all right.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned before, thank you all for your comments. I really appreciate your thoughtful feedback. And those are things that we will be talking both with DSNI and internally about as we start to craft an RFP, and we will continue and follow up with DSNI and the SDC to see if we are ready to issue an RFP for use like this, or what the best next steps will be. I also really encourage that if you have further comments or questions or would like to speak with me about this project or other potential open spaces, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is here, and I think that Cassidy is going to put that in the chat as well, and to share. If you have neighbors or friends who weren't able to attend tonight, please feel free to pass this along. There's also a project website here, this bit.ly link, which goes directly to the City of Boston's website about this project. And through that website, you can receive updates. If you put your contact information in, then you'll receive updates about whatever the next steps are, as well as that has my contact information. Thank you.
Great, thank you as well, Teresa. Okay, so I think that we're at a point where we're ready to have just a resident conversation about the presentations. There weren't any sort of key requests, but we'll just create some time for that. So if you were with a presenter, we ask you to kindly step off.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
appreciate all the wonderful updates and sharing.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good
Thank you.
night. Stay warm.
Have a good night.